Hello and welcome to the session on major figures in Indian education, Tagore and Aurobindo Ghosh. Education is one of the most essential aspects of human life. Education bestows upon man the ability to shape and modify his thought process, ideas and outlook through which man can develop his personality. Education is a continuous process that extends throughout the life of an individual. It provides man with the courage, the conviction needed to bring about changes in the society. It helps man to interact with the environment and adapt to the necessary variations. Education casts a strong influence on all aspects of human life, including social, spiritual, cultural, economic and political aspects. Education comprises of all teaching from formal and non-formal sources, experiences and observations that form a part of human life. As such, education provides constant stimulus for improvement of human life. It is one of the primary aspects that distinguishes man from all other living beings on earth and places him at a higher pedestal as compared to them. The world has been witnessing to various philosophers and thinkers who have molded the thought process of common man and guided them towards a better way of life. In this unit, we will know about two great philosophers of India and their views and contributions towards education. The life and works of Rabindranath Tagore, 1861 to 1941. Rabindranath Tagore was a famous icon of Indian culture and a renowned philosopher. He was a leading contributor to the cultural renaissance of India and Bengal in 19th and early 20th century. He was the founder of Vishwabharati University. This multi-talented personality was a creative genius who excelled as a poet, a musician, a writer, a philosopher and an educationist. In 1913, he became the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. He was among those Indian philosophers of education who had vehemently opposed the British system of education prevalent in India at that time. He shaped his education philosophy on the notions derived from Western thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the ancient Indian Vedas. He was actively involved in the modification and development of the Indian education system. His achievements in the field of literature, education, art and music had brought in recognition for himself and the country at the international level. Two of his compositions were adopted by Indian and Bangladesh as their national anthems. Rabindranath Tagore was born on 6th May 1861 at the Jorasanko mansion in Kolkata. He was born into one of the most cultured and aristocratic families of Bengal. His grandfather was Vivekananda Tagore, one of the first Indian industrialists and entrepreneur. His father was Devendranath Tagore, a renowned philosopher and religious reformer of Bengal. His mother, Sharda Devi, was a pious lady. He was the youngest one of the 14 siblings. Rabindranath started his early education at home. He did not go to any school for formal education, but was taught by a tutor and his father at home. He received knowledge about Indian philosophy, Sanskrit and astronomy from his father. He also studied about anatomy, history, geography, mathematics, literature, drawing and English. He enrolled into the Bengal Academy for Higher Education, but did not pursue his course till completion as he did not like the prevailing system of education. In 1877, he was sent to England to study law. He did not stay back to complete that course either and returned to India in 1880. However, His stay in England helped him to develop an interest in English literature, and by the time he returned to India, he had gained proficiency in the language. On his return, he started his career as a poet and a writer. He married Mrinalini Devi in the year 1883. The couple had 2 sons and 3 daughters. Ravindranath showed glimpses of his brilliance and talent right from his early childhood. By the age of 8, he had started composing verses in Bengali. He began writing poems, short stories, plays and novels. The cultural atmosphere prevalent at his home helped him to absorb the fine aspects of literature and arts. At the age of 11, he went on a long tour of Himalayas with his father. They stayed at the hill station at Dalhousie for several months. This period saw him develop a keen interest in nature and its beauty. He later travelled abroad and visited places like USA, USSR, England and Japan. Such varied exposure to different cultures shaped his understanding of humanity and universal brotherhood. In 1901, he established an experimental school called Shantiniketan Ashram and a library amidst groves of trees and gardens in Bolpur. He also developed a keen interest in painting. His literary works started to gain recognition at all levels. In November 1913, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature for English version of his poem called Geetanjali. He was conferred the honorary degree Doctorate of Literature by the Calcutta University just 1 month after receiving the Nobel Prize. In 1915, the British government granted him knighthood. However, the patriot in him compelled him to return the honour of knighthood to the British government in 1990 as the mark of protest against the Jallianwala massacre. In 1921, Tagore expanded the school at Shantiniketan and renamed it as Vishwabharati University. He established the university with the aim of synchronize the eastern and western cultures. It was converted into a central university in 1951. Throughout his life, Tagore had written countless poems, novels, essays, dramas, short stories and songs. Tagore protested against poverty, ignorance, untouchability and caste system through his contemporary writings. He was a widely travelled person. Between 1878 and 1932, he had visited more than 30 nations spread across 5 continents. His writings allowed people from various parts of the world to become accustomed to Indian culture and way of life. He was a true educationist who proved that education was not dependent on schools, colleges, classrooms or formal degrees. He passed away on 7th August 1941. Tagore's views on culture, education, gender, freedom and poverty remains relevant even today. Meaning of education as per Ravindranath Tagore. Tagore defined education as a reformatory and extensive process that strives to reveal everything that is noble and good to the seeker. He expressed that the education which inspires individuals to live in harmony with all existence is the highest form of education. He insisted that education is an indispensable part of human life. He insisted that education is an indispensable part of human life. He abhorred the idea of formal education method out in school and colleges under strict rules and regulations. He described education as a dynamic process that helped individuals to express their minds in a free manner. Tagore was of the view that education is the means to develop human personality, gain enlightenment and attain self-realization. It helps individuals to unravel the mystery of the ultimate truth about life. Education enriches an individual with inner light and love. He was of the belief that the widest road leading to the solution of all our problems is education. He also said that apart from imparting knowledge to individuals, education also promotes love and brotherhood in the world. Aims of education. Tagore was an educationist in the broad sense of the term. He was not an educationist in a conventional sense. He never wrote any books on education. His ideas and ideals on education were expressed directly or indirectly through his numerous writings and speeches. The aim of education referred to by Tagore can be summarized as follows. Physical development. He considered physical development to be the foremost aim of education. He was of the opinion that a healthy mind exists in a healthy body. He recommended several physical activities like swimming, climbing on trees, playing sports. Spiritual and moral development. Tagore recommended a simple way of life to attain an enlightened mind and peaceful soul. He was an idealist who insisted on inner discipline and peace. He stressed on tolerance, courtesy, courage, mutual cooperation, etc. Intellectual development. Tagore gave emphasis to the power of thinking and the power of imagination. He encouraged the development of the mind through activities in the natural surroundings instead of being locked in classrooms and bookish knowledge. He also insisted on developing a scientific outlook in children. Harmonious development. Tagore attached much importance to human feelings and feelings of universal brotherhood. He was of the opinion that a child should be in harmony with nature and God. Tagore synchronized individual development to the development of the society. Individual development. Tagore believed in individual development. He was of the view that a child was more important than any books or educational rules and regulations. He loathed the idea of burdening a child with books and insisted on allowing self-experience for individual development. Social development. Tagore gave importance to social service and community activities. He insisted that education must imbibe the values of social service in individuals. Development of patriotic feelings. He wanted every child to develop respect for the country and its culture. Through his writings, he tried to convey feelings and messages of patriotism. He wanted Indians to develop the feeling of oneness. Development of international understanding. He was an icon of world peace. He supported international harmony, international knowledge and universal brotherhood. He established Vishwa Bharati to synchronize the East and the West culture and social understanding. Development of religious tolerance. Tagore believed that religious tolerance should be an important part of education. He wanted children to develop tolerance towards other religions and live in complete harmony with people following different religions and faiths. Economic development. Tagore stressed that education must be related to economic life and needs. He believed that knowledge must be utilized in a way so as to earn livelihood. Education must also develop individuals in such a manner so that they can fulfill the requirements of a country. He insisted on an education that prepared individuals for service to the country. The life and works of Aurobindo Ghosh, 1872 to 1950. Sri Aurobindo Ghosh was a scholar, philosopher, social worker and spiritual reformer. This Indian was a great visionary and a patriot who envisaged a nation of conscious people who are aware of their true self. He made significant contribution to the freedom struggle of the country. He was one of the contemporary philosophers of education and had in-depth knowledge about the modern and ancient system of education prevalent in India as well as western countries. He established his ashram at Pondicherry to practice his integral philosophy of education. He suggested a new system of education for the reconstruction of Indian education. He emphasized that one of the vital objectives of education must be to prepare an individual for service to the nation and to the humanity. Aurobindo Ackroyd Ghosh was born on 15th August 1872 in Kolkata in West Bengal. His father was Krishnadun Ghosh, an Indian doctor employed under the British government service. His mother was Swarnalata Devi. He had 4 siblings. Aurobindo's father was enamored by the western culture and considered it to be superior to the culture of his motherland. So, he sent Aurobindo to be educated at the Loreto Convent School in Darjeeling when he was just 5 years old. At the age of 7, he was sent to England along with his 2 elder brothers to study at St. Paul's School in London. Later, he went to King's College in Cambridge for higher education. Academically, he was a brilliant student and soon developed proficiency in English, Latin, French, Greek, Italian, German and Spanish. He qualified for the Indian Civil Service examination in 1890. However, as he was unable to appear for the riding test, he was disqualified even though he had completed his 2 years of probation. He lived in England for 14 years before he returned to India in 1893. On reaching India, he joined the Baroda service and worked there from 1893 to 1906. He worked in the revenue department as an advisor and secretary to the Maharaja of Baroda, as a professor of English and finally as the vice president in the Baroda College. During this period, he studied Sanskrit and modern Indian literature. He learned several Indian languages like Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi and studied philosophy and the varied culture of India. From 1902 onwards, he was involved in political activities, but he acted from behind the scene as his public post debarred him from any such activity. In 1905, after agitation broke out in the country in protest against the partition of Bengal, he resigned from his post and became an active freedom fighter. He was instrumental in launching several journals like Vande Mataram, Karma Yogi, Dharm and Ugandhar to awaken the spirit of nationalism among Indians. He also began writing and giving speeches to arouse the nationalist sentiments of the people. He was arrested by the British government in connection with the Alipore bomb case in 1908 and imprisoned for 1 year. He utilized the time spent behind bars by practicing meditation and yoga and studying about philosophy and spiritualism. He also realized the presence of God in a dream. In 1910, he migrated to Pondicherry from Calcutta and later established his ashram and the International Center of Education there. He became a yogi and preached people philosophy and spiritual improvement. He travelled across the country to raise awareness about his philosophy. He retired from public life in 1926. However, he continued to write a number of literary pieces. He believed in recognizing one's true self, liberating the mind and acting according to the divine will as the fundamental duties of human life. Aurobindo passed into eternal sleep on 5th December 1950 in Pondicherry at the age of 78 years. Meaning of education as per Aurobindo Ghosh. Aurobindo Ghosh was opposed to the educational system prevalent during his time. He strongly believed that education should be a means to enlighten the mental and spiritual senses in a child and prepare him for needs of the country. He was of the opinion that education must be in synthesis with the changing requirements of the modern life. Education must not only be spiritual, but also rational and physical. Education must be a way to develop dynamic citizens who possesses the ability to face challenges and overcome them with ease. He did not believe in education that did not nothing for the improvement of the human spirit. He stressed on education that stimulated the powers of the mind and spirit. He said that education must draw out the dormant powers present in a child and make the child a complete human being. Aims of education. Arvind Ghosh preached that the ultimate aim of education is man making. Education must prepare a child to be a human being first and then work as a member of the nation and finally work for his or her individual self. He was of the view that every child must be able to receive such education in a natural, effective and easy manner. He named such education as integral education. The aims of education as stressed upon by Aurobindo are: acquire knowledge. The main aim of education is to help the child in obtaining knowledge. Aurobindo emphasized on acquiring latest knowledge related to various disciplines such as science, literature, politics, culture, etc. Physical purity. Aurobindo considered physical purity and development of the child to be a vital aim of education. He was of the opinion that without physical purity and development, there can never be spiritual development. Training of senses. According to Aurobindo, the important aim of education is to train all the senses of a child. The 5 senses, namely listening, speaking, smelling, touching and tasting, are vital sources of knowledge. They must be trained in a proper manner. Education is the only way to train the senses in a complete manner. Develop logical faculty. He believed that logic is very important for gaining knowledge. So, he insisted on the training and development of logical faculty in a child. This he believed would enable a child to draw inferences in a logical manner. Mental development. Aurobindo emphasized on the development of the mental faculties. He said that a crucial aim of education was to develop memory, the capacity to think, imagine, reason, discriminate and generalize. He was of the opinion that these mental faculties must be developed harmoniously. Moral development. In order to develop the right attitude in a child, it is necessary to nourish the moral and emotional aspects. Aurobindo preached that education was the only way to develop such aspects. He was of the view that one of the aims of education must be to imbibe in a child the feeling of brotherhood, love, sympathy and considered for all life forms present on earth. Development of conscience. Aurobindo insisted that there are 4 levels of conscience, namely chitta, manas, intelligence and intuition. It is a major aim of education to develop all these levels of conscience in a child in a harmonious manner. Spiritual development. Aurobindo emphasized that there is some degree of divinity existing in all human beings. It depends upon the teacher to bring out that divinity and nourish it. He suggested that yoga and meditation are the 2 ways to fulfill this aim of education. Self-realization. Aurobindo had the firm belief that self-realization must be one of the primary goals of education. He said that self-realization allows individuals to recognize their real being. Development of potentialities. Aurobindo was of the opinion that there is certain amount of mental, physical and spiritual potentialities hidden in every child. He advised that one of the aims of education must be to nourish and develop such hidden potentialities in harmonious manner. Let us summarize what we have discussed so far. Education is the source that provides constant stimulus for improvement of human life. According to Rabindranath Tagore, one of the greatest philosophers of India, education is an indispensable part of human life. It enriches an individual with inner light and self-realization. He was averse to formal education confined to classrooms and books alone. Tagore expressed his philosophy on education through his various writings and influenced a huge number of people from India and abroad. Even today, his contemporary ideas on education are relevant. Another contemporary philosopher of education was Aurobindo Ghosh. This great scholar and patriot suggested a new system of education for the reconstruction of Indian education. His educational philosophy emphasized that education must prepare an individual for service to the nation and to humanity. Education must not only be spiritual, but also rational and physical, and must lead to complete development of an individual. He stressed on education that stimulated the powers of the mind and spirit. Now, you can try to answer the questions given here. 1. Explain why Tagore defined education as a reformatory and extensive process. 2. Why Tagore is not considered an educationist in the conventional sense of the term. 3. Discuss the meaning of education as explained by Aurobindo Ghosh. 4. Describe Aurobindo's initiation into active politics. 5. What are the 5 aims of education as explained by Aurobindo Ghosh? Hope that you may go through the references. A Comprehensive Study of Education by Samuel R.S., PHI Learning Private Limited, New Delhi in 2011. A New Approach to Teacher and Education in the Emerging Indian Society, 2nd edition by -BN Nilkamal Publications Private Limited, New Delhi in 2005. Education in Emerging Indian Society by Saxena N and Chaudhurvedi S, Surya Publications, Meerut in 2003. Foundations of Education, 1st edition by Chobe S.B. and Chobe A, Vikas Publications House Private Limited, New Delhi in 2002. Thank you for watching this program. We can meet again with another topic. Have a nice day.